We're good. Welcome back. Welcome everybody. Welcome me back. It's been a few weeks, so happy to be back. Happy to get us back on the road. The weekly classes. Before we begin, we are learning tonight Le'ufua Shlema to Nechama Bas Chaya Rivka, also to Le'ilu Nishmat Avram ben Chaim Yehuda and Yecheskel ben Avraham. Now, before we actually begin on topic, there is a clarification / apology that I want to put out, and that is that a while ago, before Tisha B'Av, we gave a series on the hidden story of the destruction of the second Bet HaMikdash, and in the first class, I believe, I mentioned that Herod, which was one of the rulers of Judea, of Israel during that time, was a schizophrenic, terrible leader. And what it appeared to me, it came to my attention that it seemed that from my words that I used schizophrenia as a description of why Herod was a terrible, evil ruler. And while it's true that Herod was a terrible, evil ruler, by no means did I intend that anybody that has, unfortunately, suffering from the condition of schizophrenia or any of the related, mental, conditions, that there should be any negative, connotations related to that. Absolutely not. I did not mean that at all. And if, it came across by that, I want to publicly take that back. It's not the fact that he was schizophrenic. It's not the fact that he had any mental conditions, but rather the fact of his actions that I mentioned that were evil and were bad. So nothing against people that unfortunately are going through schizophrenia or any other mental condition. And we all wish whoever's going through those types of conditions a complete refuah shlema. But again, the clarification that by no means that I mean to put that into the category of something being in a bad or a negative connotations. Okay, so that was the public, apology / clarification that I wanted to put. Now we could begin with the class. So this class on laziness and honor, it was a class that one of the series. I have a lot of plans in my mind. I have a lot of plans. So only that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should be able to help me to put into fruition. But I want to do a series on tefillah, on prayer. I want to do a series on character traits. So this particular class on laziness was really a topic that I wanted to discuss when I speak about character traits, and Be'ezrat Hashem, with God's help, I will want to again delve in it in depth, these two character traits. But I felt it was very important to deal with it now because we've been dealing with Emunah for a long time. I would want to say it's over a year already. And the truth of the matter is that this topic is so important, and there are speakers that do just speak about this topic just like indefinitely. They're just continuing on this topic, and rightfully so, because it's extremely, extremely important. And I just want to clarify that this type of topic is very different from my other topics that I gave. Is that you could even tell from the delivery, and it's intentionally done so. The delivery of this topic is done intentionally different than anything else. There is sometimes repetition of certain ideas. There's quite more stories involved in this. This is more of an emotional tactic that I am working on in this particular series. But the reason why I felt laziness is very, very important to deal in this topic of Emunah is that people tend to confuse Emunah, or confuse / give an excuse Emunah for laziness, meaning that they would go and they would say that everything is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Everything is from Hashem. And rightfully so. They're very, very correct in that statement. But then they go on and say, okay, so then I don't have to do anything. Like, why do I have to do anything? If everything is from God, everything is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then I could just sit back. Like, money is going to come from God. So why do I have to go and I have to go work? Why do I have to go and I have to do my effort, my ishtadlut? It will come. It comes on shidduchim as well. What is the purpose of me going to all these different shatchanim and trying to put myself out there on dates? If everything is meant from God, and everything is going to come from God anyways, then I could go and sit at home and, my shidduch, my zivug will come knocking on my door. Unfortunately, people suffer from health issues. And they say, what is the point? What is the purpose of going to a doctor? I don't need doctors. I don't need the medical team. I don't need medical knowledge. All I have is the Torah. All I have is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And with that, I will go straight through. And by the way, that is a correct mindset with a caveat in it. You have to obviously go to doctors unless you're on a level which most likely I could say that we're probably not. And therefore we do need to go to doctors. We do need to go to shatchanim. We do need to go and work for our money. Somebody goes and they want to go and they want to learn. There's something that bothers me so much. And you have people that they learn, and I ask them, okay, so who is your rabbi? Who's your rabbi? Who's the one that you go to? And I've heard it time and time again, I don't have a rabbi. What's better yet is I don't need a rabbi. I'm like, the fact that you're saying that is so wrong, that shows me that you need not one rabbi, 1,000 rabbis, which is obviously wrong because you'll only get one rabbi. But the point is that you're missing so much of the boat. Everybody has rabbi. I have a rabbi. I have more than one rabbi that I go to, but I have rabbis that I deal with and I speak to on on a very frequent basis to discuss certain ideas, certain things that I do. Halacha, there's so many things that come up that need to be discussed with rabbis. But you have people that go and say, you know what? No, I will go and I will listen and I will learn online. I'll learn from books, and that is going to be enough. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to send me the right information that I need to know. So again, that is using emunah and twisting it to your own benefit or to your own laziness, which we'll soon see. And instead of utilizing it for growth, you're utilizing it for pushing yourself down and lowering your level. And of course, this works across the board for anything in the spiritual growth. How many people they go and they would say, I am waiting for inspiration. And they don't change themselves when they know they need to change. They're waiting for that inspiration, that change to happen spontaneously or something from the outside source, and that's when they're going to go and change. That's not the correct aspect. The correct aspect is that you're basing things on the outside sources that go and influence you. You are your own person, and you have to make your own decision that if you want to make a change, then you have to make a change right here, right now. Don't start making excuses for this is going to happen when I am going to get this inspiration. This is going to happen when I'm going to make $1 million. That's when I'm going to get married. This is going to, I'm going to be able to give this amount of charity when I make this amount of money. There are so many things that we make, excuses for, and all that results is our procrastination, our pushing things off, and we think that it's coming from a rightful place. And furthermore, you have people that depend on miracles. They depend on all these different types of nisim to happen to them. Sometimes, again, hopefully we'll do a class on it, sometimes it does warrant for that. But in other times, and unfortunately in many times, it's due to their laziness. So they say, instead of me doing anything, let me rely on this, and that will happen because I'm having the Emunah B'Dachon HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Again, there's a caveat to that because sometimes that does work. And by the way, I just have to put in a point over here that this information, it's sort of the balance, and it's very, very, there's a fine line that at one point you have to have Emunah B'Dachon that everything is from God. And that's truthful, and God can do anything and everything. Even if you're sitting at home and even if you're doing nothing, 100% that can happen. And there's another aspect that is driving our reason to say that. It could come from two fronts. Either it could come from the fact that we have such a level of high Emunah B'Dachon, and then you're right in what you're saying. But a majority of the times when we go and we sit back and we say that everything is going to happen because HaKadosh Baruch Hu was going to decree it, a lot of times that happens because of laziness. We just don't want to do something, so we plug in this formula, this Emunah formula, and then we're like, okay, then we're good. So this type of formula where you depend on miracles and you're really not on the level internally to go and say such a thing, what ends up happening is that you end up, unfortunately, not you, somebody ends up desecrating God's name. Because this would validate the viewpoint of the wicked people who say, like, look, you can see people trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu and they don't get saved. And they trust in the miracles and they didn't get saved. They had such a high level of Emunah B'Dachon. They had such a high level of X, Y, and Z, and they still didn't get saved. And the reason can be because of the fact that they weren't on that level. They just utilized that for an excuse, and really the underlying reasoning was really because of their laziness. So that is what our goal is today, B'ezrat Hashem, with God's help, to try to uncover and to try to get clarity on that subject, on that area. And in order to go and understand this, and really the focus really that I wanted to speak about was laziness. But in order to understand laziness, I feel that it was apropos to go and describe honor, because when you understand certain aspects of honoring, you'll understand more clear the aspect of laziness. So, the Chavot HaLevavot goes, in Shar B'tachon, goes on and explains that you have people that honor the wealthy. And they, not only that, says the Chavot HaLevavot, but you have people that their main focus on acquiring money, on acquiring wealth better, is only because of being honored by other people. And they want to sort of make a name for themselves. So you have, there's two different facts that we have to understand over here. Number one is the fact that people want to make money for just having a lot of money. And number two is the fact of making money so that people could honor them. So that they would get this kavod, this honor that they have. And the reason explains the Chavot HaLevavot of why they come to this conclusion, and it's an erroneous conclusion, is that they see that people honor the wealthy. And why do people honor the wealthy? So the Chavot HaLevavot brings down two reasons. Number one is that when something is very important in your life, you honor and you respect what is important in your life. So if somebody is very into the materialistic world of movie stars and all these entertainment stars, and this is very important in their life, when they see them, they will go and they will honor them because this is something that is important for them. You have other people that can't, it doesn't mean anything to them. There was once, it just popped in my head, I don't remember which star this was. I want to say like someone like Michael Jackson, but it wasn't Michael Jackson, but it wasn't that caliber. And they were, flying, and they were flying somewhere, and it was first class, and somebody bought a big rabbi a ticket in first class also to go and drive them out, fly them out to whatever it is that they wanted to go. And the rabbi was sitting right next to this big superstar of Michael Jackson level. It may have been, I don't remember who it was. And the rabbi is sitting over there and he's learning. Well, what is he sitting over there on the plane? He's sitting on the plane and he's learning. And everyone's coming and taking pictures with the star. And meanwhile, his person that's sitting there is not, doing anything. And the guy, this star, goes over to the rabbi and says, hi, gave him sort of a shalom aleichem. Hi, my name is Michael, Jackson, or whatever it was, this superstar. And he's like, oh, hi, my name is, Shmuel Grossman, or whatever the rabbi's name was. And the rabbi says, the star goes, says, do you know who I am? And he's like, no. And the star was so shocked. Like, how do you not, you don't know who I am? Like, how do you not, it was it's unheard of that he ever went somewhere that somebody didn't recognize him. And why do people recognize and give honor is because this is who they respect. This is somebody that respect. And to show you the difference, so when you go in America, you go to California, right, and you're visiting LA and you're driving and you see a star. Everybody rushes over and they want to take pictures and they want to get the autographs. They want to get even just to shake the star's hand or high five, whatever it is to the star. Lahavdil, you go to Eretz Israel, you go to Israel, and you go and you see what do the people in Israel respect. You go to, and I've been there and I've seen this, where you see all of a sudden, I remember going in Israel, this is back when Maran Avadia Yosef was alive, and when I remember one time I was in the Kotel, and he came to the Kotel, and it was just like it was paparazzi, for that you think you see in Los Angeles. You have his car pulls up right up to the Kotel, and everybody recognized the car. Everybody's rushing over. There's pictures. People are trying to push to get a hold of the rabbi. This is what they hold as important. So in Israel, by the Kotel, who do you hold as important? Chacham Avadia Yosef. This is who is important. You see, Rav Moshe Feinstein. This is who is important. You see the little Lubavitch Rebbe. This is who is important. And then you go, unfortunately, to the other side, and you see, who is important? Michael Jackson, or whatever it is in that level. So the reason, says the Chavot HaLevavot, of why people go and they honor the wealthy is because this is very important in their life. The people go and they see, and their whole mindset is all about wealth. So when they see somebody like a Mark Cuban or a Donald Trump, or Donald Trump is for a different reason, but you see Bill Gates, you see Tesla, come on, I don't know, it's blanking, but you know who I'm talking about, right? The owner of you see all Mark Zuckerberg, you see all these people. If it's money is the most important thing in your life, Elon Musk. Okay, that popped in my head. All right, you see all these most important people in your life. If money is so important to you, then when you go and you see somebody who has a lot of money, that makes you honor them. That makes you respect them. If you're very into Torah, you're very into things of the spiritual, then when you see somebody in a high spiritual level, that's who you will go and you will respect them. So, one of the reasons, says the Chavat al-Vavot, is why people go and they honor their wealthy is because this is important in their life. This is something that they regard as very important. Number 2, says the Chavat al-Vavot, is that the reason why people honor the wealthy is because they hope to benefit from them. They hope to get something from them. Again, 99.9% of the time they don't get nothing from that. They don't get nothing. Like, it's not like the wealthy guy is going to go and just going to write you a check or sign you onto a business deal. But people think in their mind that this will happen, and because of that, they will go and they will honor the wealthy because maybe they're going to get something from them. So really, the reason why they're honoring them is not for the honor and the respect for themselves, for the person or the wealthy, the successful, whatever it is, but really it's because of themselves. So this is a very important point to think about, to ponder upon, is that when you go and you honor somebody, or you give them a little bit of extra kavod, you have to think about why. Why is it that you're giving them that honor? In Parashat Kedoshim, in Vayikra, chapter 19, verse 32, it says, Mifne seva takum. In front, you shall get up, stand up in front of an aged, or like an older person. V'adarta pnei zaken. And you shall respect and honor the elderly, the sages. The more of it is actually referring to more of the in terms of age, the elderly. And then the pasuk finishes, Me'alokecha ani Hashem. V'yarata me'alokecha ani Hashem. And you should fear God. I am your God. So the pasuk is very interesting. The pasuk tells us that we have to stand up before the age and honor the sages, the elderly. And then the pasuk ends off that you have to go and you have to fear God. The question is, what does fear God have to do with anything over here? And the answer is that God, what does it mean that fear God? That God knows who you are and what is your thought process. When you go and you honor somebody, God knows why you're honoring that person. So meaning that you should go and make sure that you honor that person for the right reasons. And furthermore, on a little bit of a different note, that when you go and you want to honor somebody, or better yet, that person requires some honoring, whether it's an elderly person or righteous, but whatever it is, it requires honoring, but you are not interested in giving kavod to this person. So you make believe you don't see it. So you look away, you pretend that you don't see it, but really it says, the pasuk ends up that you have to go and you have to fear God. Why do you have to fear God? Because God knows your thought. You can't pretend that you didn't see it. It works in this world. It works in this world that you can pretend that you didn't see it. But we have to sidetrack over here, and there's 2 commandments that we learn from this. The first commandment, there's actually a commandment that you have to stand up in front of an elderly person when they reach a certain age. And again, it's different areas. Some say that it's 70. Other people say even as early as 60. You have to go and you have to give kavod. You have to stand up. They went through life experience. They went through something, and you have to go and you have to honor them. Again, when and how you honor them is not the scope of tonight's shir. But you have to honor the elderly. The second commandment that we learn from this is that you have to stand up in front of a Talmid Chacham. If somebody learned a significant amount of Torah and is deserving in a higher level of respect, when the Talmid Chacham passes by, you're supposed to stand up. And that's why when you go to certain weddings and they call up a rabbi to give a bracha under the chuppah, people stand up. They give honor not to the person per se, but in a sense to the person, but really kavod HaTorah, convert to all the Torah that this person learned. And just as a sidetrack, people don't realize is that you also have a requirement to honor your parents. The Gemara in Kiddushin, page 31b, goes and says, Rabbi Yosef heard his mother's footsteps. He would stand up. Why? Because the Shekhinah, which is referring to his mother, was coming in. And this is something that people, unfortunately, I see. If your parent comes in, you have to stand up for your parents. This is a requirement. I remember growing up that I remember my mother. My mother would make sure, ever since we were a young kids, she would make us always stand up for when our father comes in. When my father comes in, we would always stand up. And my mother, if we didn't stand up, she would be like, oh, you got to stand up. My father just walked in. We were ingrained when we were children, little kids, that we have to stand up when a parent walks in. This is a requirement. You have to respect your parents. This is something that I see constantly that people don't follow through, and it's it's something that it really needs to be focused on. There is a kavod, there is a respect, there is an honor that you have to your parents, you have to have to your rabbis, you have to the elderly. You go and you stand up. Obviously, it goes without saying, you're sitting on a bus on a train, and an elderly person goes over there and you're sitting down. Obviously, you stand up and you give them the seat. Unfortunately, in our day and age, we're so involved in our own minds and our own phones that we tend to forget there's an outside world. We tend to forget that there's other things that we have to focus on. And we really do. We really need to focus. And if you get one thing out of this class, and that is to start standing up for your parents when they walk into the room, it was worth it for you to sit over here and, spend an hour or so, whatever it is, listening to this just for that fact. I don't understand why people don't focus more on this. I really don't. I remember this. This was something that I was ingrained since I was a little kid, to the point that we did it even without thinking. It became like ingrained in us that we didn't even think about it. Our parents walked in, all the kids would rise, even for a little bit, rise, and then it was without even thinking to the point. But now we spoke about honoring the elderly. We spoke about honoring the rabbis. We spoke about honoring your parents. Well, what about honoring the wealthy? So we know that Rabbi Huda Nasi, Tanaim, and Rabbi Akiva, they did honor the wealthy. They did honor the wealth. And there is a certain aspect of where you are supposed to honor the people that have a lot of money. The Gemara over there goes and says that the reason they honor the wealthy is because they use their wealth to supply food for the people that needed it, for the needy, for the poor people. So they did chesed with their money. But there is another aspect that I recall learning many, many years ago, that if HaKadosh Baruch Hu went and he gave someone a certain amount of money, that means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave this person an amount of responsibility. When someone has a tremendous amount of money, it's not because that it's just meant for you. It's meant for you to hold and to give it out to everybody who is in need. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes and gave this person a very big tafkid, a very big purpose in this person's life. And for that, there's a reason also to go and to honor them to a certain extent, but it has to be for the right reasons. The Ma'apel Nefesh goes and says that when people honor the wealthy because they think that they're going to get something, we have to make one thing very, very clear in our minds. And that is, the wealthy do not have the capability nor the power to give us or hold us back from anything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu decreed that we get. Now, even if it was decreed that money will not come from this wealthy person can try to give as much as he wants to, or she wants to this to person Y. If it was decreed that it wouldn't happen, it's not going to happen. Even though there's free will. There is free will, and the guy could try to give it, but the completion of the act is not in man's hand. It's in God's hand. And likewise, on the flip side, a rich man cannot prevent somebody from having money. Some people, when they get a lot of money, they get into their head, and they feel that they have the power. You're never going to work a day in this town again, in this industry again. They think that they have all this power. Guess what? As a wake-up call, that if a person is supposed to make a certain amount of money from a certain amount of position and a certain amount of department in a certain industry, the rich man cannot withhold back anything. If it's something that's meant to happen, you will get the money. If it's something that's not meant to happen, you will not get the money. Even though the rich man is trying to give it to you, you're not going to get it. It all depends on what is decreed. And this is why some people have a little bit of a confusion, that they feel like they got their money because of their industry that they went to, because of maybe the business that they went into, or the degree that they went to, or maybe the inheritance that they got. This is very faulty, because really it's all from Hashem. Everything is from God. Everything is from Hashem, nothing else. So here we have a little bit of a flip side, that we have to try to go and uncover this balance that we have to do. Such an important balance, where you have at one point that we know that everything is from God. But another point, we have to do our shadut, and we cannot be lazy. So the pasuk in Shemot, chapter 23, verse 8. It says, V'shochad lo sikach. You are not allowed to go and accept a bribe. Why? A bribe will blind those that can see. And it will corrupt the words that are right. So there's a few lessons that we can learn from here. Number one is a very, very obvious lesson. And that is that money blinds people. This is not a lesson that is new to anybody. Everybody is very well aware that money blinds people. Period. There is, everybody would agree to this. There's nobody that doesn't agree with this. But there's other lessons from this. And that is, I feel like, is such an important lesson. That the bribery will blind those that could see. Meaning that you could see something. And technically, this something that you see, this let's call it this something X, this is wrong. But you will be blinded that you will transfer that X into a Y, and all of a sudden it's not going to be wrong anymore. That you could go and you could do something wrong, but you will be blinded in the aspect that you're not going to see that it's wrong, that you're going to see that it's okay, that it's right. And sometimes it's a mitzvah. And just so that we understand this, it's not only that you're getting bribed by money. But bribery does not have to be with money. I'll give you another example with, let's say you're going to go learn. You want to go learn. And then you decide, you know what? I want to sign into this class. I want to watch this class. But I really need to spend more time with my family. I really need to spend more time with my kids. I really need to spend more time with my spouse. Which is really a good reason, and in many times it is correct, in many times. But what happens is that instead of going and learning, you go and you'll spend half of the time, let's say it's an hour that you were supposed to learn, you say, no, I need to spend time with my family. Half of that hour, you go and you sit on your phone. And then the other half, you spend time with the family. So then really, you have to realize that all that was an excuse. You didn't go and you say, okay, I need to spend more time with my family, because then you would have spent the whole hour with the family. But rather what you did was that you had you wanted out. So you found an excuse, you got out, and yeah, okay, fine, you end up doing partially a part of it. But at the end of the day, you see that it was an excuse, otherwise you utilized the full time. Sometimes, this is so apropos in dating, oh man, from the guy perspective, if a guy is dating a girl that's very, very attractive, so they could be blinded, they could be bribed. The girl could have a terrible personality. The girl could be on a much lower level spiritually than them. The girl could have, so many other issues, but they're blinded by a certain sight. They're blinded by a certain thing. A guy could have tremendous amount of money. The girl could be blinded by the fact that he's a terrible personality. Can't call that a bad person. He's a terrible personality, but has terrible midot, terrible character traits. But he has so much money, and you think, okay, I don't have to work a day in my life. I'll have 17 maids, 45 bedrooms, I'll be on vacation 4 times a year, so you oversee certain things. These are all bribes. These are all bribes. Does not have to be, hey, by the way, let me slip some, hundreds under the table for you. People think that's what bribery is. Not only about money. Bribery can be about money. It can be about so many other things. Now, I'm not saying that a person should only date non-attractive, poor people, but you have to keep it in mind. When you like somebody, and Baruch Hashem, I had the schut, the ability to go and speak to a lot of people in the dating process, and how they go and they have these different questions about the person they're dating. And I could see that the person that they're dating is like, not all the times, but sometimes like so bad, like they're so bad, but they're still sticking onto it. And the reason they're sticking onto it is for outside reasons that they sort of they were bribed into it, but like without realizing that they were bribed into it. They were blinded by a certain thing that was so important to them that they failed to see so many other red flags that just like stuck out. So if one go and taking this idea, if one goes and is lazy, then they will use Emunah as a bribe to not do something and to avoid a certain scenario, and they will put it on the Emunah. So they will take this thing that they need to do, they will bribe it with a cloak of Emunah, and now not only are they not doing something, they're doing a mitzvah now by not doing it. So instead of getting up and going on a date, or getting up and getting a job, or getting up and going to learn the yeshiva, they're sitting over here and they're on a level that they realize that they're doing a mitzvah by being lazy. And this is a very, very big problem. And this is something that we have to be very, very careful when we go and we balance emunah and laziness. So we know that there's two reasons that we need to work. Number one, this is something we spoke about, I believe it was the last class that we gave, or one of the last classes that we gave, that one of the reasons is that life is a test. And we know in Gemara on Shabbat, page 31 goes and says, that, did you go? They asked you after 120, did you deal honestly in business? You know when we have to work? Because it's a test. Life is a whole bunch of tests. And we have to go and we have to pass that test. That's one reason. Reason number two is that we have to be busy. It's very, very important that human beings are busy. The Beis Halevi goes, Rabbi Yosef Dov Halevi Soloveitchik goes and says that we know that Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes, God goes and provides for our needs. He gives us everything. So why do we need to work? To keep us out of trouble. Before the sin of the Etz Hadas, before the sin of the tree, the angels would go and would roast meat and prepare wine for Adam HaRishon. There's a Gemara in Sanhedrin. It goes and says that they would prepare wine and they roast meat for Adam. Adam HaRishon didn't need to do anything. He would sit back and relax. But afterwards, after the sin of the Etz Hadas, after the sin of the tree of knowledge, now he had to go. He had to go and now he had to work for his food. He had to work for his parnasah. But had the situation remained the same, men wouldn't have to work. Women wouldn't have to work. We'd be able to sit all day and things would just be taken care of. But there was another aspect, a very important aspect of why it is so important, says the Beis Halevi, that we work. The Mishnah in Ksuvot, the 5th chapter, the 5th Mishnah, it says Shahabatala Mavi'a L'Dei, that idle time, boredom, wasting time, that brings to immorality. That brings to immorality. Now, I don't want to go into delve into much of this, but when you have cases of infidelity, when you have cases of people going and delving in the immorality, a lot of times it's because they have that time, the extra time in their hands. They're going from the gym to to get the smoothie, and then they go from the smoothie to go and talk to their friends. They just have time to waste. And when you have time to waste, and when you have the idle time, this brings to immorality. This brings, says the Mishnah, to bad things to happen. So it is very, very important that we are kept busy. But let's say you have a tzaddik. You have a tzaddik that overcomes their desires, and they are only focused on serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That someone on this level, that he doesn't need to be kept busy. And now he doesn't need the test of life because he would automatically pass it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu would go on a test of this guy is going to pass it already. He doesn't need those two aspects of it. Then that person could really sit back, learn Torah, and all the money is going to come to him. Everything is going to come. He doesn't need it, and we see this in our generation. Even you have the Gedolei Hador. They don't need to work. They go and money just comes to them. Again, they don't spend money. They have the money. They give it to anybody else. That's what makes them a gadol. That's what makes them the great of the generation, the leaders of the generation. But you see, they don't need to work. Money just comes to them. How many times you have? What was the story? I believe it was Reb Steinman, if I'm not mistaken. You had millionaires. People had so much money that were willing to go and pay for Reb Steinman to fly. Not fly first class, to fly on a private jet around the world wherever needed and pay him tremendous amount of money. Yet you see how the rabbi lived. He lived in like the most simple life. You go visit Reb Chaim Kanievsky, the Gadol Hador. You know how much money people go and they donate, and you know how the simplicity that he lives his life, nothing changes. It's like the same thing. Like I've been there, Baruch Hashem, Zachiti, that I was able to go to some Gedolim. It's so simple. It's so inspiring to see somebody that has power, that has financial ability to get money, whatever, like they can do anything. And they could go and they convince that it's really for the best. Kavod Torah, to have a nice house. To go and for other people, for guests, there's so many reasons to make it right. And by the way, sometimes that really is correct. But yet they live to the most simplest ways possible. Because they're not interested in that. They're interested in one thing and one thing only, and that is serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that is connecting to God. Everything else is frivolous. They reach that level, the problems of Parnassah doesn't apply to them. They don't need and you can see it. They don't have to deal with any of those worries. But says the Maharal that Adam was created to be supported by Hashem. But the sins, the averot, that forced him to go and work for a living. And if one commits to learning Torah, to sitting in the Torah life, and really not as an excuse for the laziness, they will really achieve that support that was promised by HaKadosh Baruch Hu before the sin of the Nachash, before the sin of the Etz Hadas. But at the same point in time, if somebody's not on that level, then we cannot go and wait for the man to fall from Shammai, the man to fall from heaven, that God is going to go and just going to knock on our door and give us everything. And by the way, just as a side note, this whole Hishtadut aspect, I'm not only referring to going out to work, or whatever it is the other Hishtadut you're doing. I'm also very much focused on the spiritual Hishtadut that you need to do. You need to pray. How many times you cry to God, you want to be a millionaire? How many times you cry to God, make me a millionaire? You want to get married? How many times you cry to God to get married? You want a child? How many times you cry to God to make it? That's also Hishtadut. That is also something that you can't say, okay, I have a Emunah b'tachon, let me sit back, and God will take care of everything. Yes, at one point you are supposed to do that, but at the same point in time you're supposed to do your Hishtadut. And even the greatest Tanaim, the greatest rabbis of the generation, they worked to make a living. The Gemara in Yuma, page 35b. Hillel was a wood chopper. Brachot, page 28a. Rabbi Yehoshua was a coal merchant. Ta'anit, page 2a. Abba Chilki he plowed. Even though that he was on a level that people would come to him to pray for rain in time of like he was a person that he would be able to go and pray to God for rain, and rain came down. We know in Bereshit, chapter 13, verse 7, Avraham, he was a shepherd. Bereshit, chapter 26, verse 12, Yitzchak planted. Bereshit, chapter 30, verse 30, Yaakov guarded sheep. Moshe, in Shemot, chapter 3, verse 1, he was a shepherd for Yitro. The greatest of the generation, they worked. Again, I'm not saying that you have to go work. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes people's work nowadays is sitting and learning on kollel. They get paid for that. That is their work. Some people are rabbis. Some people, whatever it is, I'm not saying that you have to go work. But we see over here, laziness is not the way out. It's not that, okay, I have to sit back. Okay, I have Emunah b'tachon. Everything is going to come to me. That's the way that it's supposed to happen. I'm such on a high level, Rabbi. I don't need to go work. I don't need to go. How many times I speak to people, especially when they're older, and it's so hard. It's really hard for me. Because I speak to people that are older, and they get burnt out. And I know that they're burnt out, but they stopped going on dates. They stopped going to Shatchanim. They just stopped it. And even though anybody that knows me knows that I'm very blunt, at the same point in time, I know I have to be sensitive. I know I have to be sensitive. In certain cases, maybe my emotions get the better of me, and I'm not as sensitive as I should be. But I know, and I work on it. It's something that I need to be sensitive. And I speak to elderly people, and they don't go on dates. And they start using excuses. You know what? If God has someone for me, they'll send it to me. And I try to say it in the nicest way possible. Be like, but what are you doing for that? Are you on such a high level that your zivug is going to knock on your door? Do you really think that you're on that level? Maybe you are. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe you are. But from what I know, again, I don't want to judge. I'm not judging you. But I would say you're not. In the most nicest way possible, you're not on that level. You're right. I'm not saying that you're a sinner. I'm not saying, but let's be honest. Are you really on that level? Probably not. I don't want to say that one of the reasons that if you are on that level, you wouldn't be talking to such a lowly person like me. You'll be on a higher level. You don't need me. The fact is that if you're not on that level, then don't utilize an excuse and force God into an equation, and then what happens is you'll be like, I don't understand. I had such an Emunah b'tachon in God that God will go and send me my shidduch, and He didn't send me. And really, that has nothing to do with Emunah b'tachon. You lied to yourself. You bribed yourself. The shachad, the bribery, goes and blinds people that can see. How many times? I can't emphasize enough how important this topic is. This topic is not a topic that you should just like, okay, I heard this class and let me move on with my life. Like I'll take one. This is something that you really, really need to think about. This is such an important topic that you really have to think about it. Like, why are you doing what you're doing? Are you lazy? Do you have that level of emunah b'tachon? Like, where are you holding? Now, I know for some people, this is going to cause a midlife crisis. Like they're as it is, they're going and they are in like a anxious mood, and all of a sudden I throw this bomb at them. They'll be like, great. Okay, great. Now I can't sleep because maybe my whole life I was living a lie, and I don't know where I am and who I am and how level I am. And take a step back. Forget about the past. Focus on the future. Focus on where you're holding right now. Where are you holding right now? It's very, very important that we do not utilize emunah as an excuse for our laziness. Laziness is a very, very bad thing. Now, I know it's a little bit late, but that was pretty much my introduction to laziness. So we'll have to see where we'll get to it. But the aspect of laziness, the Klausenberger Rabbi went and he made this crazy program. And the program that he did was that people will learn 70 blot per month of Gemara. That is 70 pages of Gemara per month, with the Gemara, the Rashi, and the Tosfos. So that is something like that will take minimum an hour to 2 hours to do one page. And he said it's per hour, let's say. And he said 70 pages per month, which is a very, very high amount. And not only that every 2 months, the people would go and review 210 pages of Gemara, which is a lot. So someone went over to the rabbi and says, Rabbi, do you think that people will go and they'll be able to, understand the Gemara by learning by such a high pace? So the rabbi says, who said that was my intention? Who said my intention was that people will know the Gemara when they finish with this? That was not my intention of starting this program. So you want to know what my intention was? My intention of starting this program was that it will keep the people busy. And if you're busy, you're not going to have time to sin. And that is the goal of my program over here, is that people won't go and won't sin. That's so important in life to keep busy. And if you are blessed with a job or an opportunity or money or success, whatever it is that you don't have to work so hard, it is very, very important that you keep busy. Rabbi Victor Miller also told about himself. He said he never took a vacation. He would always keep busy. And he would always tell people that what was he busy with? He was busy studying for his tests. So people would ask him, what test are you studying for? Is there a government program for like a rabbi now that you have to pass? And he says, no. He says, I have to pass a test after 120. After 120, God is going to test me. He says, what did you do on earth? What did you learn? He says, now is the test time. Now is the time that you have to go and get tested. And that's what you have. You see a lot of gedolim. They don't take vacations. They never took vacations. And even you have gedolim that took vacations. You have Rabbi Eliasher, for example. He used to go on vacation in Beit Vagan. And what was his vacation? The vacation means that instead of learning 18 hours a day in the Bet Midrash or in his house, he would learn 18 hours a day in a different location. That was the vacation. It was just like getting in a different scenery, but doing exactly the same thing that they needed to do. Learning 18 hours a day. Because it's very, very important that we are kept busy. And laziness has a way of creeping into each and every single one of us. And we tend to sometimes use emunah or other excuses for our laziness. And it says the Mesilat Yesharim that laziness, the problem of laziness, that a person can know his obligations, his requirements of what he needs to do. Yet the reason why he falls short in these obligations is not because the lack of recognition of what he needs to do or she needs to do, but rather it's because the power of laziness that affects the person and takes over the person, and that's what pushes the person away from acquiring and accomplishing their obligations and the requirements that they need to accomplish. And furthermore, says the Mesilat Yesharim, says the Ramchal Bar Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, he says that the danger about laziness is that a person could go and justify their laziness with so many sources from the Gemara, from the sages, from the Torah. And they bring these logical arguments. And they say, look, you see what I'm doing is right. And they're talking to themselves, I'm doing the right thing. But really, says the Mesilat Yesharim, this does not come from logical thought. This rather stems from laziness, and this overcomes the rational thinking. Now, I utilize this thought process so many times in my conversations with people. This is so important. That we think that we are thinking with our brains, with our logical thought process. But really, a majority of the times, we're not thinking with our brain. We're thinking with our emotions. When I have people go and they deny, they say, they call me up, they say, I have, questions on God, I have questions on Yiddishkeit, I have questions on Judaism, I have questions on the Torah. They have all these questions on God. And we try to go and delve into each question appropriately. And after I answer those questions to the best of my ability, I give them this bomb, which is really, I feel, was the underlining reason of all the questions. And that is 9.9 out of 10 times that when people have questions of God, on God, or anything else for that matter, on their prayers, on the Torah, whatever it is, any questions that they have on spirituality, it's not based off logical thought. It's based off emotional thought. And I've said this many times in the classes. And I feel it's so important. And it's something that, B'ezrat Hashem, I will continue saying many times. Because this is something that whoever listens to our classes, this is something that I want to, pass on to whoever is listening, because I feel it's so important. From my experience of speaking to people, I see this time and time again, and this is really the underlying answer to so many of your life's problems, or of your life's questions, is that we have these questions in life. But these questions are not logical questions. These are questions, not questions that are coming from our mind. These are questions that are coming from our heart. Maybe we're angry at God. Maybe we're angry at Hashem. And that's why all of a sudden it stirs us some sort of, questions. Maybe we have desires, lusts, and reasons to go and indulge in our desires. So cognitive dissonance, for whatever reasons, we go and we try to justify our actions. So we come off to some sort of conclusions that we think is logical. We think that we're thinking very logical. That we're questioning everything and we're doing the right thing. But really, it all stems from our emotions. It has nothing to do with logic. And again, I could speak about this for literally hours, because I feel this is extremely, extremely important. But really, it's not the focus of today. But the point is that when you have two choices in your mind of what you should do, you should be very, very wary of choosing the easier option, because the root of the reason could very, very likely be laziness and not anything else. When you want to go and you want to learn, when you want to grow, and you decide maybe, not to for whatever reason, a lot of times that's laziness. You want to exercise, and then you decide not to. Laziness. Hygiene. How important is hygiene in relationships? How important is hygiene in anything, even if not in relationships? And you decide that whatever reason, push it off. Laziness. Cleaning your house, keeping your house clean. Again, this is difficult. People have kids. I know it's difficult. I know I'm touching, especially speaking to women. This is a sensitive subject more than anything else. Cleanliness, sensitive. But when you don't do something, is it for reasons A, B, or C, or really is it because of laziness? And we really have to focus, and really something we have to think about when we go and we make a decision in our life, a decision in our personal, professional, whatever it is, whether it relates to our own relationship, our relationship between us and our friends, our relationship with us and our spouse, are we doing something because it's the right thing? Or do we come to that conclusion because it's the easier way out? Says the Mesilat Yesharim, the most valid arguments that we may have could simply be tactics of a person's desire to avoid pushing themselves to the next level. And I'll give you a crazy example. In the introduction to the great work of the Chavot HaLevavot, the work that if you learn anything about Emunah, it mostly comes from this sefer, written close to almost 1,000 years ago. Rabbeinu Bachya, you're talking about a sefer that is unlike any other. And I strongly recommend people to go and learn the Chavot HaLevavot. And if you feel like if you open up any sefer on Emunah, you're automatically going to find quotes from the Chavot HaLevavot Shar HaBitachon, the gate of Bitachon, the gate of Emunah. The gate. This is where the Chavot HaLevavot speaks about Emunah. And I want to share with you what the Chavot HaLevavot wrote in the introduction to the Chavot HaLevavot. And he writes, after planning to write the book of Chavot HaLevavot, he changed his mind, Rabbeinu Bachya. He says, I thought my powers are too limited. My mind is too weak to grasp the ideas. Furthermore, maybe I do not possess an elegant style in Arabic in which the book was supposed to be written in order to be able to go and affect the masses. So he said, I feared that maybe the undertaking such a task which would succeed, not really succeed in promoting this, but rather succeed in exposing my shortcomings. Therefore, says the Rabbeinu Bachya, says the Chavot HaLevavot, I decided to drop my plans and revoke my decisions. I'm not writing the book. However, he thought about it, as many people should think about their decisions. And I decided, and I realized, and I recognized that perhaps my motives were not completely pure. And says the Chavot HaLevavot, I began to suspect that I had chosen the comfortable option. Looking for peace and quiet, I feared that what I had motivated for the cancellation of the project was really for self-gratification, which has driven me to seek an ease of comfort, to opt for inactivity, and to sit idly by. Meaning that I chose the lesser of the more work needed. And the real reason was because maybe I didn't want to push myself. Maybe, I shouldn't say that. Maybe I didn't want to, focus more on my ease and comfort and not push. It's very hard, very complicated to go and to write a book. It takes a lot of time to write a book. It takes a lot of time to prepare a shiur. Maybe it's better, I don't need to do that. I will sit, I will learn myself. I don't need to do all these things. But to our benefit, to the eternal benefit of the Jewish nation, Rabbeinu Bachya realized that he should write the book. And he did write the book. And the book, this Sefer, is a Sefer, Musar Sefer, unlike anything else. Rabbi Shaul Salanter goes and says the Chavot HaLevavot Shar Bitachon, what we've been learning for the past year. This is the Shulchan Aruch for Hilchot Bitachon. You want to look for the source of Bitachon, you go to the Chavot HaLevavot. The Arizal told his students that every day they need to study the Chavot HaLevavot. The Malach HaMagid, the angel that learned with the Bet Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Karo, the author of the Shulchan Aruch, he goes and the angel told the rabbi, read a passage from Chavot HaLevavot every single day because he knew how to subjugate the Yetzer Hara like no one else. This is what the Chavot HaLevavot, which was on such a high level that has an approbation, has an askama from the angel himself, not from a rabbi, from an angel. If he almost fell victim to the aspect of the easier way out, the laziness way out, then every single one of us are at risk of falling to that easier aspect, to that laziness. And how careful we have to go and we have to think about decisions in our lives. Of why are we doing something? Is it really because it's the right decision, or we're just we're opting for a way out, an easier way out? Rabbi Moshe Feinstein would go and say that people underestimate themselves. They greatly limit their talents. And they never achieve their potential, their greatness. And they think this comes from an act of humility, but rather this is not humility. Rather, this is something that emanates from the Yetzer Hara, from the evil inclination. Time is running late, and I still have a lot. We're going to go on. We have to close the subject out. We have to focus on now, in the next few minutes, possibly more. I'm not going to say anything. Don't say it. Stop talking. Possibly, we have to figure out how to fix this laziness. What is, how do we go and how do we deal with this? Says the pasuk in Mishlei, the 6th chapter, the 6th pasuk. Says Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, the wisest of all men, Lech el nimala atzel. Go, you lazy person, you sluggard person, go to an ant. Re'ed da'achea, go and see her ways, v'chacham, and become wise. That's what the pasuk says. The pasuk says, go to the ant. you sluggard, you lazy person. And then see her ways, and then you'll become wise. So first of all, we have to understand, why did Shlomo HaMelech go and say, go learn, this from an ant? Why do we have to learn laziness from an ant? And the answer is that you look at an ant. Ant lives, for a few months, more or less, plus or minus. And they don't need that much food to live. They're very small, but yet you see the entire summer, everything that the ant finds, she's collecting and collecting and collecting. Even though she's collecting much more than she needs to survive. The lesson that we learn is that we're alive in this world. We have to collect. I'm not talking about worldly possessions. I'm talking about, obviously, spiritual possessions. We have to focus on collecting everything we can in this world. That is lesson number 1. But lesson number 2 is we have to understand, why did Shlomo HaMelech go and says, go learn from an ant, see her ways, and become wise? Wise? What does that do with wisdom? You say, go to an ant, study an ant, look at an ant, learn from an ant, and you'll become diligent like an ant. Ant is very diligent, doesn't rest. I've never seen an ant put back 3 or 4 of its legs, lean back and get a suntan. I've never seen an ant, to be honest, I've never seen an ant stationary. I don't know, I'm not an ant whisperer, nor am I an ant studier, like antologist or whatever it is that they're called, the people that study ants. But you never seen ants just like hanging out. Drinking a beer with the boys, getting their nails done. You never see an ant just like sitting around. Like I've seen, other animals sitting around. Lions hang around. Cats, pretty lazy, if you don't know, if I could say that, like just hanging around. But an ant? Have you ever seen an ant just like curl up and just like into a ball and just like, chill? You never seen that. Like an ant constantly is moving. So we see that an ant moves. So we look at an ant. Okay, so we become diligent. What does it have to do with wisdom? Go to an ant, become wise? What? Become diligent. That's what we should learn from an ant. But rather, what Shlomo HaMelech is going and telling us something, a huge point that we have to consider. And that is, laziness is not a physiological problem. It's not because you're physically tired, you're exhausted. That's not where laziness stems from. Laziness stems from an issue of wisdom, a lack of knowledge. That's where laziness stems from, because you have a lack of knowledge. Says the Maharal that an animal always points their head down. They're always looking down. A human always looks up. An animal is always looking down for the food. He's always looking for food. A man is always keeping their head up. Why? Because it's something that we spoke about many times. Such a cool, if I could say, aspect from the Maharal. And that is, we know that there is moach, there's a brain, there's a lev, there's a heart, there's kaved, there's the liver. We're not getting into the depths of this because a lot of Kabbalah regarding this, beautiful aspects regarding parts of your neshama, your soul. We spoke about it previously. I believe maybe in the incarnation. We spoke it many times. But in any case, the moach is the brain. The lev is the heart, the kaved is the liver. You think with your heart, with your brain. Your heart also has an aspect, and then you have the liver, which is the seat of desires, where all the desires stem from. What a person's supposed to do is a person's always supposed to use their intellect, their moach, their mind. Then they use their lev, their heart, and then you use the kaved, the liver. And that spells, in that order, that spells melech. Moach, lev, kaved. Mem, lamed, and then obviously chaf and the chaf. This is a melech, a king. What's a king? A king who is in control of everything. That is a king. A good king is in control of everything. You want to know how you're going to be in control of your life? You utilize your brain. If you utilize your heart, utilize your other things to come to some sort of, you're just bribing yourself. And that's why, I just want to throw it out in there because it's so cool, but like when Bilam wanted to curse the people, what was the curse that he wanted to say? Kalem. The exact opposite of melech. Bilam's curse was kalem. Kalem really literally means destroy them. But how was the destruction supposed to be? He was telling the Jewish people, don't use your brain and then your heart and then your liver. Rather, use your liver first. Start from the bottom. Start from your desires. And then you'll use your heart and then you'll use your brain to come to some sort of bribery, to come to some sort of conclusion that you're really right. So really, we have to be a melech, we have to be a king. And in order to be a king, we have to be in control of everything. If you want to be in control of everything, you have to focus on your brain first. That is the focus that you have to go, and that is the focus that you have to make your decisions. So we learn over here that laziness is not a problem of weakness in the body or the muscle. but rather it's a weakness of the sechel, of the intellect, of the brain. And that is why when you go, and we know that Ezu HaChacham Haro'eh Hanolad, who is a wise person? Someone who sees the future. Someone who sees the future as focusing, is utilizing their brain. He knows what to do in life. What's the future? You think about it. If someone's going and sitting in bed, and it's hard for them to get up for shacharit, it's hard for them to get out of bed. They're lazy, whatever it is, they're tired, lazy, whatever excuse you want to give it. So what is the focus of your life? And if we would just take that scenario and plug it into a different scenario, you're tired, but you have to catch a flight. You're going to get up. You don't want to miss a flight. You're going on a trip. You're excited. You're going to get up. You have a business deal. You're going to get up. You're getting married. You're going to get up. So it's not that you're saying, oh, I'm tired. It's the fact that whatever I'm going to do is not as important as business, flight, money, whatever it is, marriage. So if we utilize our brain to understand the importance of whatever it is that we're lazy on, that will gain our perspective and change our aspect of our intellect, and all of a sudden we won't be lazy anymore. That is why the Shulchan Aruch, one of the reasons Shulchan Aruch starts, the Or Chaim goes and starts off and says, Shiviti Hashem lenegdi tamim. I always place God in front of me. I'm putting God always in front of me. Why always God? Because if you realize that God is always in front of you, you're going to make different decisions in your life. If you realize that God is always looking, how can you go and make excuses? So you know what we learn from the ant? The ant foresees the future. He knows that food is not going to be available in the winter. So he prepares in the summer. Got to finish off because it's getting a little bit late. The Michtav Eliyahu goes and says, you had, a primitive person that goes and saves a king's life. And he saves the king's life, and the king awards him with, going into his treasure house and getting anything that he wants. And the guy's like, I don't understand this king. Like, not only do I save it, now he's making me work and I have to go pick up stuff from the treasure house. He decides he's going to pick up a few random things and then he's going to leave it, thinking that he outsmarted the king. But really, when somebody wise goes and hears what he did, it'd be like, you fool, you idiot. You can't, what you had? You had the ability to go and set yourself up for life. You could have set yourself up for life. You could have gotten everything. When you sat over there and you slept through your whole ability to go and make billions of dollars, millions of dollars. We're placed in this world. We're placed in this world and we have the opportunities. God gives us the opportunities. And He gives us the opportunities to succeed. And we space out through life. We fall asleep through life. We squander those opportunities that God gives us because we're thinking we outsmarted the system. There was once a wealthy man. No, incorrect. This man wasn't wealthy. I just told you a different story that I didn't want to say. There was once a lazy man who was not wealthy. And he decided that he was trying to find a way to make himself, some sort of meal, some sort of food. And he is walking, he's hungry, and he saw a fruit farm, a bunch of trees with fruit in it. And he's looking left, he's looking right, he doesn't see anybody there. He decides he's going to go and he's going to steal some fruit. He goes and he climbs over the fence, goes over to the tree and starts picking some fruit. All of a sudden, from the distance, he sees the farmer sees him, and he picks up this pitchfork and a sword, and he starts yelling, and he's running at him. And this lazy man gets so scared, he drops all the food, and he starts climbing over the fence, and he starts running, and the farmer is chasing after him with his pitchfork and his knife, and they chase him straight into the forest. And this lazy guy is running and running and running until he realizes that the farmer is no longer chasing him. He's out of breath. He's sitting there, he's trying to rest, and he suddenly, can get his bearings of where he is. And he's looking around, he sees, he's in the forest, he's a bunch of animals, and he sees in the distance something that looks very, very odd. He says he sees a fox, and generally he would be very scared of the fox, but for some reason he wasn't scared of this fox. And he sees the fox, he goes closer and closer, and he sees that this fox only has 2 legs. It's missing the back 2 legs. And this lazy guy goes and looks at this fox, and he says, how is this fox surviving? There's so many other animals in the forest over here that would just kill the fox and eat it. The fox has no way to run, no way to protect himself. So this lazy guy decides that he's going to go and he's going to watch how this fox survives. And he's sitting over there And he's looking at this fox, and this fox can't really just standing over there. Or tilting over there, leaning over there. And suddenly, he sees all the animals that are around him, chipmunks and the rabbits and all the other, they start running in all directions. And, it's like, what's going on over here? And all of a sudden, he sees in the distance a lion coming. And this lion has a piece of meat in his mouth. And this lazy man is terrified. He sees a lion over there. Forget about it. You run away from a lion. And he doesn't know where, he figures he can't outrun the lion. He climbs up a tree. He climbs up a tree and he's looking and he sees the lions coming. All the animals are running all away. But this fox can't run. The fox is just sitting over there. So he's sitting over there. He's like, that's it. He's watching the end of this fox's life. And he sees the lion comes closer and closer to this fox. And the lion starts getting into the creeping position. It gets closer and closer to the fox. Looking at the fox. The fox is looking at the lion. Can't do anything else. The lion gets so close to the fox. And they're staring at each other. And it seems like it's an eternity. And all of a sudden the lion opens its mouth, drops the meat that was in his mouth, closes his mouth, turns around and walks away. The fox looks at the piece of meat. Dinner is served. He starts eating. And this lazy guy is looking at this. He's like, I can't believe this. This is unbelievable. This is amazing. He says, look at this. God went and provided for this fox food. The fox didn't have to move. Didn't have to flinch. The lion came and brought him the food. Uber Eats by Lion brought him the food, rated 5 stars. No, perfectly spiced. Everything was great. Delivery on time. Great conversation. No problems. This lazy guy's like, wait a minute. He says, if the fox was able to be provided food by the lion, and God went and provided for this fox, then why do I have to do anything? I'll go sit by the road. And just like God provided for this fox food, God will provide for me. Emunah bitachon like nobody else. Forget about it. This guy's on a high level. This lazy guy goes and sits on the road, puts a straw in his mouth, puts his hat down, relaxes, whistling, playing his harmonica, whatever the lazy guy's interested in doing, and he's waiting. An hour goes by. No one's coming with his burger. 2 hours goes by. He's like, where's my steak? 3 hours goes by. He's like, I'm waiting for my cheesy fries. Where are they? 4, 5, 6, a day goes by. Nobody's giving him nothing. 2 days go by. The guy's like starving. He's like, I don't understand it. What's happening? Like, God, come on. You gave the fox. You can't give me a meal? 2 days. He's starving. He gets up, tries to find some food, finds some, nourishment, gobbles it down. He passes by this wise old man. And he goes over to this wise old man. He says, you got to help me out over here. He says, I don't understand. And he explains to him the whole scene that he saw. And he saw how God went and provided for this fox. And he says, why does God love this fox but hate me? God showed me. He showed me that he is able to provide even for a fox who doesn't have legs. But for me, a human being, God can't send me a meal? So the wise old man goes over to this lazy man, smiles at him, and he says, you're looking at it all wrong. He says, you're looking at it at the perspective of the fox. That's not what God wanted from you. God wanted you to look at it from the perspective of the lion. Don't wait for the food to come to you, but rather you be that lion and give the food to somebody else. The lesson, says the wise man, that you so misinterpreted was you were looking at the angle from the fox. You got it all wrong. You have to look at the angle from the lion. You're supposed to be the lion to give to somebody else, not the fox waiting to accept from somebody else. How many times have we seen, heard, felt, thought about something, and we interpret it the way that we want to? And we think about, God, what are you doing to me? Like, why are you not listening to me? I see your power. I see your ways. And God's saying, you're looking at it all wrong. He says, I'm not there to go, and you're not there to go and get a handout. He Says, I don't want you to get the handout. I want you to go out and give the handout out to somebody else. How many times this comes up in relationships? Whether it's our friend, our sibling, our spouse, we're just waiting for them to treat us better. We're just waiting for them to give us that good word, that kindness, that compliment we so desperately seek. And we're just waiting. God, come on, give it to me, come on. Like they're waiting with open hands, like when are you going to go and just do something good for me? Says God, don't look at it that way. You're looking at it the wrong way. So just like you have the desire for something and you want something, forget about the aspect of going and waiting for it to come to you. You go and you give it to somebody else. God gave you that desire, that need, that want. Now you realize that there's a need, there's a want. You know that you want something. You know that there's a need, that somebody else also wants that thing. So you go and give it to somebody else. We go and we utilize our life and we utilize our life's experience and we think, okay, fine, this is what we need to happen. And how many times do we misinterpret that? No, that's not what God wants. That's not what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to take that lesson. Instead of waiting to receive that goodness, you go and you give that goodness to somebody else. How apropos this is for Emunah. We hear all about this Emunah. We hear about all the importance of Emunah and Bitachon, and rightfully so. But sometimes we twist that. And we utilize it for our own benefit. We're like, okay, so when is it going to happen to me? When am I going to get this goodness that I so desperately want? And yes, there is an aspect of Emunah and Bitachon on that. But our focus should be very strongly on the aspect of not what you can get, but what you can give. And don't utilize different life's interpretations, different life's experiences to interpret it for your own laziness. Be honest with yourself. Be truthful to yourself. You want to accomplish something in your life? Do it. Get up and do it. Stop thinking. Stop giving all the excuses. Just do it. I'll say it one more time. Do it. Do it. Get up and do it. Just like get up and just do it. So what I'm trying to say is that if you want to do something, just do it. Stop waiting for it to happen. So basically do it. Now I don't know how clear I am, so I'm going to explain it very, very clearly. I'm going to say it in slow motion. So listen very, very carefully. Do it. You want to wake up for Shachrit? Wake up. You want to start learning? Learn. You want to go and you want to be more modest? Be more modest. Just do it. Just forget about everything else and just do it. It's very simple. Don't let your laziness overcome you. Don't let your emotional desires overcome your intellectual reasoning. Just do it. Nike got one thing right. Just one. I mean, they named their sneaker after an idol, so we can't even get to that. But they got one thing right. Their logo should be a logo of your life. I believe, honest opinion, logo-wise, besides Torah Anytime, God's Reasons for the Internet, one of the best logos is Nike. Gotta be, hands down. Just do it. That. It's as simple as that. You know how many times I have conversations with people and they want to do something, and at the end of the day, I just tell them, okay, so do it. They're like, what? No, I'm like, just do it. They're waiting for some motivation. And be like, I'll give you an inspiration that you're going to cry. Oh, so sad. Oh my God. And then you're going to laugh. I'm so motivated now I can do it. No, forget about all that. Just do it. You just get up and do it. You want to get finished Shas? Start Daf Yomi. You want to dress more modern? Don't wait till you get married. You want to keep Shabbat? Forget about when I have grandchildren. No, do it now. You want to go, and you want to work. Just stop it with Stop with all this, nonsense talking, wasting time in life. Just do it. Should probably name this class, Just Do It. Maybe I should. That's a good class, So maybe we should rename this to Just Do It. So as a recap, if I were just to recap this entire class in 1 or 3 sentences, it would be just do it. This class is brought to you by Nike, our sponsor. Welcome to the day. Okay, with that we will open up to any questions. By the way, just do it.